Greetings and welcome to season 2 of Mark 5 podcasts, back hopefully by some popular demand, but the same subject is virtual care. And now we're beginning to see the season of adoption of new and progressive telemedicine reforms across the US. And today we're going to talk about 2 states that just stepped up in the last month. And it's important that we all know what happened and what they decided to do. The laws themselves are important, but how they decided may be more important for the future of virtual care in the United States. So what do I mean? Well, if you have a law in this country, in one of the states, it's something that's been approved by the legislature. Every state has a legislature, and every state has a veterinary medical board. Now, there's quite a difference between those 2 bodies, and that difference we're going to explore a little bit, and you'll feel like you're in a political science class, but it's going to make sense to you, I hope, in just a few minutes. Legislatures, of course, are full of people that run for office. They campaign, they're elected, they raise money, they make accusations about their opponents, they defend accusations from their opponents. It's a pretty intense contest, and if you live in America and haven't been asleep for the last 2, 4, 6, 8 years, or actually 200 years, you'll know what I mean. Veterinary medical boards, of course, are appointed by governors. They don't campaign, they don't run against each other, they don't compete with each other. Legislators, once they get to the legislature and they've won an election, they vote to decide who has the positions of the most power, who gets to chair a committee. If you chair a committee, you get to decide if legislation gets heard or not. And there's a Senate and a House in all states but Nebraska, and they have to figure out how to get along. And very often in legislatures, and I've worked with them, I hate to say, but at least for 40 years, often good ideas and good laws that are about to become law get kicked to the side, and you don't know what happened. It's because 2 politicians made a deal, or maybe 2 politicians can't stand each other, or they're both planning to run for governor or some other office, and one has the power to stop somebody else's bill, even if he doesn't care about that bill. Also, legislatures meet in most cases every year, but sometimes for as short as 2 months or 1 month even. Only 10 states go for most of the year. And they're in a big hurry to do something with thousands of bills to consider, and you don't have the kind of consideration and the thoughtful, deliberate looking at options that you might prefer. And I'll tell you, in the case of veterinary medicine or pet healthcare, very few states, I'm sure I could count them on one hand and I wouldn't need all my fingers. Very few states have even 1 veterinarian in their legislature. The US Congress, for example, has only 1 veterinarian, Kurt Schrader from Oregon. Now, that makes a difference because they don't have any experience. They do represent the typical Americans, which is 65% or 70% that own a pet, and that's important, but that's not really seeing it from the side of the veterinarian and what goes into being a doctor of veterinary medicine or a veterinary technician. Let's go look at veterinary state boards. All American state veterinary boards have a majority of members who are licensed veterinarians. Virtually all include 1 or more veterinary technicians or nurses, and they all have a member of the public. So they don't meet in a short burst of time. They typically meet every month or every quarter. They take a lot more time to make decisions. It's, I can't say not political at all, but basically it's not very political. It's much more a reasoned decision. And that's what's exciting about what 2 states just did. Let me tell you about what happened. Both New Jersey and Michigan state veterinary medical boards adopted a comprehensive set of regulations that are now law in those 2 states that add up to about 20 million Americans and a lot of veterinarians and certainly a lot of pets. They have adopted comprehensive set of laws allowing for the telemedicine VCPR, allowing, contrary to what is typically the rule in the US, for a veterinary-client-patient relationship to be created, to be started through telemedicine, rather than an in-person visit inside of a clinic. So let's dive into what Michigan and New Jersey just did and consider what this might mean for the future of virtual care or telemedicine in the United States. What I want to do is compare New Jersey and Michigan, because they're not quite twins, but they're almost, they're certainly siblings, and they're very close to each other. And you're going to see that these were thoughtful, quite reasoned, interlinking set of guardrails or guidelines related to the use of a telemedicine VCPR. They don't appear to be political decisions. And what I like about this, and what I am going to be promoting, and I think VVCA will be promoting around the country, is to encourage legislatures to do what Arkansas did, and they directed their veterinary medical board, if they so choose, to create Arkansas's rules regarding telemedicine. And I think that's a path that we could follow in many states, and we'd be much happier with the outcome, in large part because it would allow veterinarians, it would allow pet owners, it would allow vet techs and vet nurses to be at the table and to be heard. And the decision would be made by people that understand the day-to-day nature and the day-to-day needs and challenges of veterinary practices. So both of them allow what we would call a telemedicine VCPR, but I have to make clear, Michigan is one of the few states that doesn't use the term VCPR, but basically they allow a veterinarian to start a relationship through a telemedicine means. Now, each of them had a requirement, which again, I think was very thoughtful, that the telemedicine engagement between the pet owner who's in some other location with their pet and the veterinarian in some other location, that it has to be through a real-time video exchange where the veterinarian can see the pet, number one. It's not through emails, it's not through a text. You can use that afterwards, but to get started, they want the veterinarian, of course, to be able to see the pet. They also want there to be a means to have any medical records or any diagnostic information exchanged if that's available. Another safeguard. The next one is they want to make clear that if a veterinarian uses telemedicine, and VVCA feels as strongly about this as anyone, you need to have privacy protections built in to protect the pet owner and the pet, as well as to protect the veterinarian. Next, they rely on the veterinarian's judgment, and they direct that the veterinarian pause and think through whether they know enough and whether the circumstances with the pet allow for a good decision to be made through telemedicine. That's not a dangerous thing. That's not a negative thing. That's a smart caution. It's basically saying you need to make a decision, the veterinarian, based upon your judgment and training. Am I in a situation with this pet, and do I know enough that we can begin a relationship? I can begin to treat or be helpful and guide the pet owner in whatever decision needs to be made. They also make it clear that the standard of care, the legal standard of care that the veterinarian's bound by, is no different in a telemedicine engagement than it is in person. It's not like you can lower the standard if it's in person or lower it if it's telemedicine. They're the same. They require in both cases that the pet owner provide written consent to the telemedicine exchange. So they want the veterinarian to tell the pet owner, we're talking, I can see you, I can see your pet, and we can go all the way through with this. You have a choice, by the way. You have a choice whether you want to continue via telemedicine or come into the clinic. But I want you to sign, I want you to understand, if we do it through the telemedicine means, I want you to sign off on that. That's another thoughtful step that gives the pet owner some power in the relationship. And I think it respects the pet owner because it's their decision as to whether they go forward. And finally, on the issue that will probably take up as much of the debate across the country as any, they took different approaches on one issue, which had to do with prescriptions. Can you do a prescription, that is prescribed medications, based upon a telemedicine engagement rather than in-person examination? These are the same issues human medicine faced in state after state, and they've addressed it. Michigan said you can, and they said you can because Michigan has had a law in the books for some time that covers every healthcare practitioner in that state: doctor, chiropractor, DO, PA, nurse practitioner, veterinarian, and it allows for prescriptions if you have a telemedicine start to the relationship. And I think the Michigan Veterinary Medical Board properly didn't believe it had authority to change that statute. And if the legislature wants to change it later, of course they could. but the Veterinary Medical Board didn't change it. So they made it clear that you can prescribe if you've decided it's appropriate and you know enough about the pet through telemedicine. New Jersey took a different course, and it did find that with Schedule II dangerous controlled substances, a certain category of medications that trigger concerns that people have regarding opioids and the like, that requires an in-person examination. That's what they did. Now, we're not at VVCA predicting or saying that every state has to do the exact same thing that Michigan and New Jersey just did, but we now have two major states, two politically very powerful states with a lot of voters, a lot of pets, and I think uppers between the two of about 3,000 to 4,000 veterinarians, that telemedicine should go forward. And if it's convenient and makes sense to start a relationship that way, now it's the law in both of those states. I think it's going to have a significant impact on the rest of the country because these are large states and because they are the action of a veterinary medical board. And I hope that's a path that we now follow in state after state, whatever the outcome is, to have a group of experts pull in stakeholders in a more calm, not time sensitive process and make a good decision. So again, nice to be back with Mark 5 podcasts. I'm sure we'll see you soon on another virtual care topic.